The door clicked shut like a gunshot in the quiet of our cramped Brooklyn apartment, the deadbolt sliding home with a finality that made my heart slam against my ribs. Jake's eyes, those storm-gray eyes I'd stolen glances at for 2 semesters, locked onto mine, wild and raw, as if he'd just run a marathon through hell. "Alex," he whispered, his voice cracking like thin ice. "I'm not who you think I am. I can't pretend anymore." I froze on the edge of my bed, the half-eaten slice of pizza tumbling from my hand onto the faded blue rug we'd salvaged from a stoop sale last fall. The room smelled of rain-soaked leather from his jacket and the faint, bitter tang of the cheap coffee we'd been chugging to cram for finals. We'd been roommates for 8 months now, thrown together by the housing lottery at NYU, 2 Midwestern transplants navigating the chaos of New York like it was a battlefield. Jake, with his easy grin and stories of high school football glory in Ohio, had been my anchor, the straight-arrow jock who blasted classic rock while we cooked ramen at midnight, who dragged me to dive bars in the village where I'd nurse a beer and watch him charm the room without trying. He'd tease me about my artsy-fartsy film major, call me professor when I ranted about Scorsese, but there was always this undercurrent, a warmth in his shoulder bumps that lingered a beat too long, a hesitation in his laugh when our knees brushed under the rickety kitchen table. But straight? Yeah, that's what he let everyone believe. The girls on our floor swooned over his broad shoulders and that dimple that flashed like a secret weapon. I'd seen him flirt back, light and effortless, but never follow through, not really. And me? I was the quiet gay kid from Ann Arbor, out since 16, who'd learned to bury crushes like landmines under layers of sarcasm and late-night edits on my laptop. Jake knew, of course. I told him over cheap tequila on move-in night, expecting the awkward nod or the polite distance. Instead, he'd clinked his red Solo cup against mine and said, "Cool, man. Means I don't have to hide my shitty taste in rom-coms anymore." We'd binge-watched When Harry Met Sally that weekend, him quoting lines with a mock-serious drawl. Now, here he was, pacing the 3 feet of space between our beds like a caged wolf, his NYU hoodie zipped up to his chin despite the humid July heat seeping through the fire escape. Finals were done, summer sublet looming, and the city outside buzzed with fireflies of taxi lights and distant laughter from rooftop parties. But in here, the air thickened, heavy with whatever bomb he was about to drop. "Jake, what the hell?" I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. I stood, wiping sauce from my fingers on my jeans, the floorboards creaking under my socks. "You look like you just saw a ghost. Or like you're about to bolt for Ohio without paying your half of the electric bill." He stopped, hands raking through his damp hair, leaving it spiked like he'd been electrocuted. Rain from the afternoon shower still clung to his lashes, and up close, I could see the shadows under his eyes, darker than usual, like he'd been wrestling demons all night. "It's not that," he said, his Ohio accent thickening with stress, the way it did when he talked about his folks back home. "It's this. Pretending like it's just bros rooming together when every goddamn time you smile at me, it feels like." The words hung there, unfinished, but they sliced through me sharper than any rejection I'd braced for. My stomach twisted, a mix of hope and terror blooming hot in my chest. Was this it? The confession I'd replayed in feverish what-ifs during lonely subway rides home? Or was it the axe? The "I know you've got a thing for me, but dude, I'm straight" speech every queer guy dreads? He crossed the room in 2 strides, close enough that I could smell the cedar of his soap mixed with city rain. His hand hovered near my arm, then dropped, fingers curling into a fist. "Last night," he started, voice low, "I was at that party in Williamsburg, the one with the rooftop DJ. You bailed early for your shift at the theater. Remember? I was supposed to meet up with Sarah, that girl from my econ class. Everyone thinks we're a thing now, right? The perfect straight couple, saving me from being the token single guy. I nodded, throat tight. Sarah, blonde, bubbly poli-sci major with a laugh like wind chimes. I'd watched them at the spring formal, her hand on his arm, his smile polite but distant. It had gutted me, that night, standing in the shadows of the gymnasium, nursing a plastic cup of punch, convincing myself it was fine. He was straight. I was the roommate. End of story. But I couldn't do it, Jake continued, his gaze dropping to the floor, then snapping back to mine with fierce intensity. We were dancing, or whatever you call that hipster swaying, and she leans in to kiss me. And all I could think was, your face. The way you looked at me when we watched the 4th of July fireworks from the bridge last month. Like I was more than just the idiot who burns toast. My breath caught. The fireworks. That humid night when the East River glittered like a vein of fire, and we'd leaned on the railing, shoulders touching, the crowd's cheers fading into static. I felt it then, that pull, like gravity shifting. But I chalked it up to the beer, the magic of the city. Jake! I started, but he barreled on, words tumbling like he'd dammed them up for years. I'm gay, Alex. Or bi, or whatever the fuck label fits. But I've been hiding it since high school, since the first time I realized staring at the quarterback in the locker room wasn't normal. My dad. God, my dad. He's the king of man-up sermons, with his garage full of hunting rifles and stories about how real men don't cry. Mom just nods along, baking apple pies like that'll fix the world. I came here to escape, to be this version of me, football dropout turned business major, dating girls to keep the questions at bay. But you saw through it from day one, didn't you? With your quiet way of listening, not judging. The room spun, the walls closing in with the weight of it. Gay. My straight roommate, my crush, my best friend was gay. And the truth he'd hidden wasn't rejection. It was a mirror to my own buried longing. But even as elation surged, doubt clawed in. Betrayal? No, not quite. More like the sting of time lost. Of nights I'd spent scrolling Grindr in the dark while he slept 10 feet away, oblivious or pretending to be. I stepped closer, our breaths mingling in the charged space. Why now? I asked, softer than I meant. Why lock the door and spill it all on the last night of the semester? Because tomorrow I go home, he said, voice breaking. And Sarah's waiting for me at the airport. Tickets to some family barbecue where I'll have to play the part again. But I couldn't leave without this. His hand finally found my arm. Tentative. Warm through my t-shirt. Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me you feel it too. I did. God, I did. But as our lips met, tentative, then desperate, tasting of salt and unspoken years, the kiss felt like the first crack in a dam. What came next? The flood? Or the ruin? Sunlight sliced through the blinds like accusatory fingers, painting stripes across Jake's bare back as he slept tangled in my sheets. We talked until dawn, words weaving a fragile bridge over the chasm of what-ifs. His stolen glances in the shower, my jealousy masked as jokes. The way we'd both gravitate to the same corner of Washington Square Park on weekends, feeding pigeons and pretending the world wasn't watching. The kiss had led to more, hands exploring with the reverence of explorers charting forbidden maps, but we'd stopped short of crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed, not with his flight in 12 hours. I slipped out of bed, padding to the kitchenette where the coffee maker gurgled like an old friend. Brooklyn hummed awake outside, the rumble of the G train, vendors hawking bagels from carts, the eternal symphony of a city that never quite sleeps. As I stirred sugar into 2 mugs, his with a splash of milk, mine black as my mood, a knock shattered the quiet. Sharp, insistent. Jake stirred, mumbling something incoherent, but I waved him off. Through the peephole, Sarah's face swam into view, her blonde waves pulled into a ponytail, eyes bright with that effortless optimism that made my chest ache. She held a paper bag, probably pastries from that French spot in Cobble Hill, and a smile that said she hadn't a clue about the earthquake that had just leveled our world. "Shit," I whispered, heart pounding. Jake bolted upright, sheets pooling at his waist, his face paling to the shade of the walls. "It's her." He scrambled into boxers and a shirt, raking hands through his hair again. "Act normal," he hissed, but his voice was a threadbare whisper. Normal. As if we hadn't just rewritten our entire narrative in the span of one rain-soaked night. I cracked the door, mustering a grin that felt like glass. "Hey, Sarah. Early bird catches the worm, or in your case, the coronet." She laughed, that chime of hers, and thrust the bag forward. "Guilty. Figured you'd both be zombies after finals. Jake's flight soon. Thought we'd grab a quick goodbye coffee before I head to my internship." Her eyes flicked past me, landing on him with a warmth that twisted like a knife. "Babe? You ready, babe?" The word landed like shrapnel. Jake emerged, all forced casualness, pulling her into a hug that was too tight, too long. "Yeah, just packing the last bits." His gaze darted to mine over her shoulder, pleading, panicked, and I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. We tumbled into the awkward dance of a morning after gone wrong. Small talk over flaky pastries, her chattering about summer plans in DC, him nodding along with smiles that didn't reach his eyes. I played the third wheel, the comic relief, cracking jokes about the theater's air conditioning failing mid-show last night. But inside, conflict raged, a storm of protectiveness and pain. Who was I to him now? The roommate who'd become a revelation, or just collateral in his double life? As they gathered his duffel by the door, Sarah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowning. "Family's early at the airport. We gotta hustle." She turned to Jake, cupping his face with that easy affection. "Miss you already. Text me when you land." He nodded, throat working. "Yeah. Love you." The words were rote, mechanical, but she beamed, oblivious, planting a kiss on his cheek before breezing out with a wave. "See you in the fall. Alex, don't let the city eat you alive." The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence roared. Jake slumped against the wall, sliding down until he sat on the rug, head in hands. "Fuck. That was... I didn't mean... love you," I echoed, sharper than intended. The word hung between us, venomous. "You just lied to her face. To mine." He looked up, eyes red-rimmed. "It's habit. Survival. Back home. It's what they expect. The script I've memorized since prom." He reached for me, but I stepped back, the distance a chasm. "And what about us? Was last night just another script? The bicurious experiment before you go back to playing straight?" "No!" He surged to his feet, closing the gap. "Alex, last night was the first real thing I've felt in years. But it's not a fairy tale. My family's waiting, with their Bible study groups and pray the gay away whispers from the neighbors. If I blow it up now, I lose everything." I wanted to scream, to shake him until the fear loosened its grip. Instead, I grabbed his duffel, shoving it toward him. "Then go. Play the part. But don't come back expecting me to wait in the wings." The hurt in his eyes mirrored mine, but he shouldered the bag, pausing at the door. "This isn't goodbye." Pause. "Promise me you'll think about it. About us." I turned away, staring at the coffee rings on the table. "Fly safe, Jake." The door closed softly this time, and the apartment echoed with emptiness. Summer stretched ahead, endless shifts at the indie cinema in Tribeca, humid nights editing short films on my ancient MacBook, the city a glittering distraction from the ache. But Jake's absence was a ghost, haunting every corner. His half of the fridge stocked with energy drinks, the scuffed baseball glove on the shelf from pickup games in McCarran Park. 2 weeks in, the betrayal crystallized, not his, but the lie we'd both lived. I'd scroll his Instagram, heart sinking at the curated shots. Him grinning with Sarah at a lakeside barbecue, her arm looped through his, captions like, "Home sweet home blessed." Comments flooded in family, old teammates, praising the golden couple. Each one was a punch, reminding me of the fragility we'd cracked open, only to seal shut again. Then, the text started. Sporadic at first. Miss the city. Miss our dumb arguments over pizza toppings. Then deeper. Dad cornered me about settling down. Told him I'm figuring it out. Wish you were here to roll your eyes with me. I'd reply in bursts, witty deflections, emojis to mask the longing. But the pull was magnetic, drawing us into late-night calls where his voice softened, confessions spilling like contraband. "You're killing me, Alex," he said one August night, the line crackling from some Ohio cornfield where he was helping on the farm. Crickets chirped in the background, a world away from my fire escape perch, where sirens wailed like urban lullabies. Every day here feels like dress rehearsal for a life I don't want. Then rewrite the script, I urged, the city lights blurring through unshed tears. Come out. To her. We can figure the rest. Silence stretched, heavy as the humid air. I want to. God, I do. But what if it breaks everything? What if I'm not brave enough for you? The call ended with "I love yous" whispered like prayers. But doubt festered. Was this romance or recursion? Doomed to loop until one of us snapped? September loomed. The sublet ending. Our apartment waiting like a neutral ground. I threw myself into the fall semester. Classes on queer cinema at Tisch. Open mics in the East Village where I'd perform monologues about unspoken loves. The crowd's applause a balm on raw nerves. Friends noticed the change. "You're glowing, man." Spill. "Who's the guy?" I'd laugh it off. But inside, the conflict brewed. Jake was coming back. And with him, the reckoning. The train from JFK rattled into the city like a prodigal son returning to judgment. And there he was, Jake, leaning against a pillar at the Atlantic Avenue station, duffel slung over one shoulder, looking every bit the all-American boy who'd spent summer tanning by Lake Erie. But his eyes, when they found mine through the crowd, held the weight of oceans crossed and secrets dredged up. I'd come to meet him on impulse, heart hammering against the subway's sway. We fell into step on the sticky pavement of 4th Avenue, the air crisp with early fall bite, leaves skittering like confetti underfoot. Brooklyn welcomed him back with its usual indifference. Bodega cats yowling from stoops, kids on scooters weaving through pedestrian chaos, the distant thump of bass from a car stereo blasting Jay-Z. Small talk bridged the gap at first, his summer hijinks, a fishing trip gone wrong, a cousin's wedding where he dodged the bouquet like it was radioactive. My theater gigs, a sold-out run of Angels in America that left audiences in tears. But the unsaid loomed, a third companion shadowing our strides. Halfway up the stairs to our building, breath clouding in the chill. Sarah and I, we talked. Before I left, his voice was steady, but his grip on the railing whitened knuckles. My stomach dropped, the world tilting, and ended it. Clean. Told her I wasn't ready, that it wasn't fair to her. He met my gaze, unflinching. The truth is, there's someone else. Has been for months. Relief crashed over me, sweet and dizzying, but laced with the sharp edge of suspense. Someone else? Here? Now? Who? Pressed, though a treacherous part of me already knew. You, idiot. He laughed, low and relieved, stepping closer until the space between us hummed. If you'll have me, no more hiding, no more scripts. The kiss that followed was public, unapologetic, lips meeting under the sodium glow of the hallway bulb, his hands framing my face with a tenderness that belied the months of torment. Our door swung open to scattered clothes and laughter, the apartment reclaiming us like a long-lost limb. That night, we mapped each other with whispers and touches, building something real from the ruins of pretense. Romance bloomed in the mundane. Shared shifts at a new coffee shop in Dumbo, where he'd steal bites of my muffin and I'd catch him staring with that dimpled grin. Lazy Sundays in Prospect Park, debating the merits of Brokeback Mountain versus Moonlight while acorns pelted the grass. But drama has a way of circling back, like a plot twist you sense but can't dodge. Started with a letter, crisp, official envelope from Ohio, addressed to Jake in his mother's looping script. He read it alone at first, face draining of color, then shoved it across the table one rainy October evening. They're coming. For Parents' Weekend. I scanned the pages, heart sinking. Glowing praise for his progress, subtle jabs at the city's distractions, and an itinerary packed with wholesome activities. Mass at St. Patrick's, a Yankees game, dinner with the dean. But underlined twice, so proud of you and Sarah. Bring her along, family loves her. Betrayal, sharp and fresh. Not from Jake, he'd been out to her, at least, but from the invisible strings of expectation. The family machine that churned out normalcy like sausage. They don't know, he said, crumpling the paper. About us. About me. The conflict escalated in the days that followed, a pressure cooker of arguments and silences. I'd pace the living room, film scripts forgotten on the couch, railing against the unfairness. You're 22, Jake, not 12. Tell them, or we're just delaying the inevitable. He'd retreat to the fire escape, chain-smoking camels he'd sworn off, staring at the skyline like it held answers. You don't get it, Alex. This isn't some indie flick where the coming-out speech fixes everything. My uncle tried, disowned, couch surfing for years. If I shatter that, and what about us? I fire back, voice rising over the patter of rain. Am I the dirty secret you trot out when it's convenient? The city boyfriend who stays hidden while you play house back home? His eyes would flash, hurt mirroring mine. I love you. That's not in question. But love doesn't pay the emotional toll, or the guilt that comes with it. The climax hit like a nor'easter, 2 nights before their arrival. We'd been at a queer film fest in Chelsea, hands intertwined in the dark as Call Me by Your Name unspooled on screen. Timeless orchards and stolen summers that hit too close. In the afterglow, buzzed on cheap wine at a nearby bar, Jake's phone lit up. A voicemail from his father, voice gruff with that Midwestern bark. Son, heard about Sarah. Rough break, but chin up. Plenty of fish. See you soon, got big news. Your mother's excited. Big news. The word detonated. Jake's face crumpled, and he bolted into the night, weaving through the village's throng of drag queens and tourists. I chased him, lungs burning, catching up on a bench by the Hudson where the river slapped against the piers like accusations. It's an engagement ring, he gasped, the realization dawning. For Sarah. They bought it last Christmas. Insurance against my wandering eye. If I show up alone. I pulled him close. His sobs muffled against my shoulder, the city lights fracturing through tears. Then we fight it. Together. Or we end this now. before it destroys us both. He pulled back, eyes searching mine in the sodium haze. What do you want, Alex? Really? You? I said, simple and true. But not in pieces. All of you, or nothing. Dawn broke over the water, painting the skyline in pinks and golds. As we forged a pact, brave or broken, we'd face it head-on. No more half measures. The humanistic core of it all. Love wasn't a conquest, but a choice. Raw and relentless, demanding we claim our truths or lose them to the tide. Parents' Weekend descended on NYU like a Midwestern front. Crisp skies, tailgate barbecues on the quad, moms in cardigans herding freshmen for photo ops. Jake's folks arrived in a rented Impala. His dad a barrel-chested ex-Marine with a handshake like a vice. His mom a soft-spoken woman whose smile hid the cracks of quiet endurance. They swept into our apartment with Tupperware of lasagna and questions that skirted the edges. Where's that nice Sarah girl? Seeing anyone special? Jakey? He played the part at first, charming tour guide through the village, dodging the ring topic with laughs about focusing on classes. I hovered on the periphery, the great roommate with quips about film theory to deflect. But tension coiled tight, betrayal's aftertaste lingering in every forced grin. The breaking point came Sunday dinner, at a red-sauced Italian joint in Little Italy where Sinatra crooned from tinny speakers and the air smelled of garlic and possibility. Over veal parm and Chianti, his dad cleared his throat, pulling a velvet box from his pocket like a loaded gun. We've been saving this. For the right moment. Sarah's family, solid folks. Thought it'd make things official. Jake's fork clattered, the table falling silent. His mom's eyes widened, hopeful his dad's proud. Mine burned, locked on Jake, willing him to detonate. I'm sorry, Jake said, voice steady as steel. But Sarah and I, we're done. And there's someone else. The words hung, the restaurant's din fading to a hum. His dad chuckled, awkward. Come on, puppy love. This city's full of distractions. Not a distraction. Jake reached for my hand under the table, squeezing once, then letting go, a public declaration in the subtlest stroke. His name's Alex. We've been together since summer. I love him. Chaos erupted softly at first. His mom's gasp, a napkin fluttering to the floor. His dad's flush rising like mercury. Questions tumbled. Together? As in? Since when? Jake answered with truths long buried. The locker room fears, the Ohio isolation, the freedom he'd tasted here. No accusations, just facts, laced with the love that had anchored him. His dad shoved back from the table, chair scraping like nails on chalkboard. This ain't right. God's plan is for you, Jake cut in, gentle but firm. Not me. I tried your way. It nearly killed me. His mom reached across, tears streaking her rouge. Jakey, why didn't you say? Fear, he admitted, voice cracking. Of losing you. The meal ended in a stunned exodus. His dad stalking to the car, muttering about prayer chains. His mom lingering for a hug, whispering, we'll figure it. Call your aunt. She's got stories. No fireworks. No disownment. But he'll nonetheless. Back in the apartment, as rain lashed the windows again, Jake collapsed onto the couch. Spent. That was it. The truth. Out. I sank beside him, pulling him close. Proud of you. He turned, eyes soft in the lamplight. Us against the world? Always. Winter settled in with its own dramas. Thanksgiving calls laced with tentative warmth. His dad's emails evolving from silence to gruff. How's the city? Spring brought pride parades where we marched hand in hand. Rainbows clashing with Brooklyn grit. Betrayal's scar faded, replaced by deeper bonds. him interning at a startup in Soho, me directing my first short at the Tribeca Fest. Conflicts arose, jealous flare-ups over ex-flings, the grind of balancing dreams, but they forged us stronger, emotional sinew over romantic fire. Graduation dawned bright, caps tossed under a cerulean sky, families converging in a sea of hugs and flashes. Jake's parents were there, his dad clapping my back with a nod that spoke volumes, his mom beaming through misty eyes. As we stood on the great lawn, diplomas in hand, Jake leaned in, breath warm against my ear. Told you we'd make it. The city stretched before us, infinite and unforgiving, but together, we'd carved our story, not flawless, but ours. Human, in all its tender, tenacious glory, and in that, the greatest romance of all. Choosing truth, every damn day.